Hello, my creative friends. Today I thought I'd share with you a lesson from my new Skillshare class, Whimsical Faces, Paint a Beautiful Watercolor Portrait. I hope you enjoy it and find it helpful. Hi, I'm Jessica Sanders. Welcome to my channel. So let's do a warm up with our colors. One of the ways we're trying to keep this super simple is by using only 3 colors with our painting. And so I've chosen for this painting Quinacridone Violet, Quinacridone Rose, and Ultramarine Blue. But I'll probably just call them Violet, Rose, and Blue as I go along teaching you today. As I mentioned in the supply video, I'm using M-gram watercolors. These come in tubes and then I put them into pans and let them dry. You can use the colors and the paints that you have. So this particular exercise, this warm-up, is a way for me to get to know my paints and you to get to know your paints and how they're going to behave when you're doing the painting. So don't skip this. This is super helpful. I know maybe it looks a little tedious, but actually it's pretty fun and you learn so much about your color. So embrace the process and let's get going. I have 2 different brushes as an option to use, one that holds more water and one that holds less water. I'm going to start with this one, but I may switch over to less water depending on how the whole process goes. We'll see. I also have my clean water. I'm wetting my brush first, and I have spritzed my paint palette with water just to get those colors going. Now, because I've made this swatch card, I know exactly where my paints are. I know that this is the violet, this is the rose, see there? And then the second one, is the ultramarine blue. I'm going to start with the rose as my first color, just because. And I've wet my brush. And as I said, it's pre-wet, so, oh, look at that color. That is just amazing. So I've mixed a nice thick color. I'm going to do this for each of the colors. And I'm going to start with a swatch and lay down that color. And I'm not worried about being precise here. This is fun and exploration. So I'm going to dip my brush, which has the color in it, but it's a little dry, into the water, just a little, so that I can add more water here and get a more watery swatch. This way I can see how it looks as it gets lighter. Now I have a lot of water there. That's from not tapping off my brush, so I'll do that. I'm going to rinse my brush thoroughly now, tap it off, and more water. So now I have a nice color swatch, and just, isn't that gorgeous? That is just one gorgeous color. So that nice soft pink is what you're looking for this particular painting. If that's what you like, that's what I used. Now I'll go with the violet. Again, beautiful, luscious. This violet leans toward the red side. It's a warmer. I think it's a warmer violet. Looks beautiful. Nice and thick mixture. Pick up a little bit of that, not too much. And go for color number 2. Now I'll write these colors in probably later. I want a darker, so I went straight into my pan and picked that up. And now I will swatch it out. Pick up a little more water, but not much, so I can get that really light. And then at the end, now you can use 2 jars of water. These colors are work very well together, so I already know I can just use 1 water and I'm okay with that. But if you want super clean water, then by all means get 2 jars of water. So that's a nice gradient there, starting with heavy color and working out to light. So this also shows me the values that I have available for each individual color. Okay, let's go to that ultramarine blue now. Again, thick mixture, picking up quite a bit of pigment. A smaller mixing space here, that's fine. I actually don't use as much of this blue, so the smaller mixing space works perfectly in this case. Nice thick ultramarine blue. Look at that. And here we go. Lay down that color. Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful. Went back into the pan to pick up a little more concentrated color. Adding a little more water. Still have paint in the brush. And then cleaning the brush. Oh, I dropped a few drips in there because I'm going over my paper. It's actually better to have your water to the side. But for my camera setup, sometimes I need it in a different place. So I added more water. I tap it off and look at that. Nice. Also, if you notice, as I was doing this, every one of these colors have a nice flow to them. Now, the flow of your paints may be a little bit different. That's okay. The type of paper, the type of paint all matter in that they flow differently. The main point is that you get to know your paints. So this is a great way to do it. Now, I have down here layer. And I have color 1, 2, 3, color 1, 2, 3. What I'm going to do in this area is create stripes. Now, I could have done this as I was putting color here and probably should have when I had that color on my brush, but I didn't, so I'll just go do that now. Color 1, I'm just going to create a stripe right there. I'm not worried about its value right now. Color 2, another stripe. Not a lot of water here, just mostly the paint. I'm not trying to create blooms or special effects or anything like that. I just want to create some stripes. Now I want this to dry before I do the other part of the stripe. So I'm going to let those dry, and I'm going to move over here while that's drying to my color wheel. Now my first color, second color, and third color are here, here, and here. I'm not worried about filling up these sections. I just took a circle, divided it into 6 because I was using 3 colors, and I want to see how they work together. I'm not worried about filling up the entire space. I just want to put the color in its appropriate space. So here is the blue. While I have that on my brush, I'll do that, and I'll do the same thing and add water as I go there. Okay, I'll go to color 1 now, which is the rose. I'm picking up from the same puddle that I already created. It's simple that way. And laying in that color. Again, I am not worried about perfection. This is exploration. This is fun. If it bothers you to not go all the way to the lines, then by all means, go all the way to the lines. Do what works for you. So I'm cleaning my brush again, and I'll go to that the second color, which is the violet, and lay that in there. And, oh, I've got an overlap. Does that matter? Nope. Not at all. This color is spread really nicely. Okay, while I have the violet on here, I want to see how it mixes with the rose. So I'll just go ahead and take the violet and continue over this way. I don't want it to be like highly mixed. I just want to see how they work together in this case. So now I'm picking up the rose, and I'll do the same here. And just let them touch each other. I think the rose, I added quite a bit more, so I'll pick up the violet, and I'll add more of that in here. Like I said, the purpose of this is to see how they look and work together. Now, I could create a complete mixture separately and see how that goes. It's up to you how you want to do this sort of color wheel where your colors are mixing. But I want to see, in this case, how they mix on the paper rather than how they mix in my palette. Now I have that rose. while I have that rose, I'll go ahead and put some here, and we'll see how it mixes with the blue. As you can see, I'm not being perfect. I'm just exploring. I'm giving myself permission to breathe, to relax, and to enjoy the process, to just play with my paints. So I'm adding quite a bit of that blue. I'll go back to the rose and add more of that in. I'll tap them together a little bit. Let's see how they mix. Wow, we get a really dark there. We'll do a little more mixing of these colors down at the bottom in a minute. That's where we are right now. This is a very thick mixture of the blue. If you notice, I used more actually pigment and paint here than in swatch. So let's continue with the blue while I have it on my brush. And let's see how it works with the violet. Now there are lots of ways to do this. This is just one way. I think it's a fun way to do it, and I love seeing how the colors will mix together or not mix together depending on how it works. This is still a little bit wet, so I'm going to leave it there just a little longer. Look at that color. I mean, that is just singing. It is going to dry lighter. If you notice, this is starting to dry, and it is lighter than this. Lighter. This gives you a great way to see how your colors work together and how they look when they're wet and when they're dry. It's a great color study tool. Now let's do all of the colors together. I'm going to start with this lightest color, with the color number 1 again. I'm just going to make a puddle right here. Quite a bit of paint in there. Then I'm going to switch over to the violet once again. Pick that up, and I'll make a puddle next to that with quite a bit of paint in there. Now if you notice, the pink pushed into the violet. That's important to know. The violet didn't push into the pink pushed into the violet. The rose pushed into the violet. That is a characteristic of the colors and how they work together, so that's important. You know which one is going to push into which. Now at the bottom, I'll add the blue, and now I'm going to connect that there. I'm going to see how they all work together. Like I said, there are lots of ways to do this. Now if I just completely mix the violet and the blue here, look what I'm going to get. Let's see if I add that rose in there. I think I can get a really dark color this way. So I'm picking up the different colors and mixing them in there. Yeah, look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Gorgeous. So I get a very interesting violet color that's more blue, while the other violet is more red. Is that what I said earlier, that this was more red? I don't know which one I said earlier, but basically now I can see, oh, this is much more blue. When I mixed it, of course, with the blue and with the rose, then this one is more toward the red side. This blue is also toward the red side. So these are all warm colors. Okay, so I have these dried. I think they're pretty dry. So I can finish my stripes now. And what this is going to tell me is how they layer over one another. This is all about mixing. This is about layering, which we're going to be using a lot in our painting. So I'll start with the rose. Color number 1. And just make a swatch straight across. Then I'll go to color number 2, which is the violet, in this case, and make a swatch straight across. Now I'm using a lot of paint here, so they're not as transparent. Rather, they're very dark is what I'm trying to say. So when we're layering in light layers, it's going to look a little different, but you can see what colors show through what. When you're creating this, you don't want to paint over and over again because you can lift your other colors that are already dry. Okay, that is our beautiful color warm-up swatch. It's drying. It's going to look a little different when it dries. I encourage you to do this kind of exercise to learn about your colors, how they move, how they work together. We learned a lot by this. We can see dark to light values. We can see how they would mix on the paper. We can see what happens when we put all three of them together and how dark of a color we can get. We saw that the pink would push into the violet. It looks like the blue pushes into the pink a little bit. So this violet is maybe the least aggressive or moves the least out of the three of these when they're together. And then we can see how they layer over one another and what the colors look like when we do that. Again, this is a dark swatch. You could do more water swatch if you want to see how they look when they're lighter. Okay, let's move on to the next lesson.
So thanks for watching the lesson from my Skillshare class. I hope you enjoyed it and you found it helpful. I thought I would also include a time lapse of the actual class project. For my Skillshare class, I actually do real-time painting and explain everything as I go, including my thought process and focusing on keeping things super simple and keeping that attitude of enjoyment while we're painting. So if you're interested in this class, links are down below in the discussion section. I'll also leave a free link for those of you who are not Skillshare members, but that will be a limited quantity. So if you want to check it out, you'll have to do that pretty fast. There are probably only going to be like 25 of those. So thanks so much. I hope I'll see you in my Skillshare class. If not, I will definitely see you here on YouTube again. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Oh, I almost forgot. If you use my link that I'll give down below to join Skillshare, you'll get 2 free months. It's the best deal on Skillshare that you can only get from someone who teaches there. Okay, thanks. I'll see you. Bye-bye.